ladies and gentlemen. Hope everybody's doing well. I did. I waited for you to walk. Hard to notice that. We'll start off with the City of Council reports. Jerry, you look like you have a report.
Yeah,
Possibly.
Did we not have a quality dinner at the seniors last Thursday? Maybe you want to elaborate on that?
I was going to mention that, but you could elaborate it as well. That it was such a great time. They had, I think, 360 people. And almost everyone on council was there that was eligible to be there, including some who were not.
Oh, I snuck in.
But that some was really a hard worker. So Jeremy, thank you. You worked so hard to help everybody, as did Linda. And Perry, you did a really good job schmoozing.
Oh.
But it was wonderful. I don't know how many years Main Street's been doing that. I think it's I was going to say, I think it's close to 20. But I remember going probably no more than 10 years ago, or 11 years ago, and they had to actually open the side room at Main Street because it was getting a little too crowded for the little room. So that's how much it's grown. And we're about out of space at the senior center.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So thanks to the Green family and Main Street for that wonderful dinner, lunch, dinner, both.
Right.
Any other reports? Nope. Okay, Ms. Kim? It's all yours.
Just to follow up there on the senior center, if you don't get to witness too often the personality of Diane Ayers, you got a full dose of it. I know I talked to several of you there. The good part about Diane and what you get with her is they wouldn't take for her. And Miss Renee, who was her assistant, is just a clone of a younger clone, so that's a good thing. Takes some special personality working with those seniors.
I had to send Diane a note afterwards and say, thank you, she's not retired, but to retire.
Well, the good thing about it, the good part about Renee is we've got alternatives.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, we were a little concerned, but we got alternatives.
And for those of you who got there late, Diane said that she doesn't want Harris. She said she likes him now, but she really hadn't liked him for a long time.
You know, I don't know that I understood that, but I've accepted it. All right, well, no, she's not about to calm down there with that. Tell them those people.
And don't you get up when she calls a different code at tablecloth, but it's Thanksgiving. Don't even move.
And that's, the good part about what you saw down there the other day was, of course, she was just aging and not great shape. But Donnie was stepping in there, and Donnie to make sure that she's going. That's really good to see. Donnie's a wizard, yeah. And let's see, I wanted to introduce, we've got a new senior planner that is temporary, but back in the back of the room is Alexander. Alexander, stand up. He is a new senior planner for the day, and he said that he is got one down his back. That's Stephen's son, and he's here. So Alexander, welcome. Glad you're here, and we may call him here in a little bit when we get to some of the planning items. So you ready with your presentation, right?
Well, at least we're getting somebody now that knows how to work computers. Amen to that.
So we're glad to have him. Several things before we get into our topic. We had reported to you several weeks ago that our finance building had flooded, and we got it repaired, and over the weekend it's flooding again. So it is, it's not as widespread, but are they out?
No, sir.
Are you still there? You enduring?
We're enduring, yes.
We got a lot of we got an effort to determine what the situation is and get that fixed. But
We got some swim fins,
huh?
we got some floaties and swim fins. We're hanging in.
Since you did not move, you can do your report.
No, I can't.
Remind you that in the morning at 10 o'clock will be the Michael Williamson Memorial Drive dedication, and and access will start at the,
At the memorial.
Now, 11.
Kind of walk over.
yeah, okay.
Night
Right, so that's at 10 o'clock in the morning. And then, for those of you that have an interest of us, so it is Friday, December 5th at 10.
We're doing really, really well with that.
Doing really, really well with that.
Okay.
Doing exceedingly well, beyond expectation. So,
Never a doubt.
so it's good. The Christmas lights will go on Friday night,
Wednesday night.
Wednesday night. Oh, okay. Like tomorrow night.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Good.
Hey, Gary, let's go back to that previous conversation. Who's gonna be, have to take the public one?
That's the loser.
Yeah, but do you have any odds?
It's not gonna be Euless. Yeah, it's not gonna be Euless.
We don't know. We have some volunteers that have to do it.
Okay,
And that's
that's the best part of it, other than helping the kids, it's just that public punch.
that'll be good.
At last count, that water was 44 degrees.
Yeah, I was telling, I think it was Wes and Brothers this morning, last night I was out doing some cleaning and some water, putting all the leaves that had fallen, and had my arm up about my elbow and a skimmer, and it reminded me how cold that water is, and it hurts. It's all my donation this morning. So, anyway, that's, and then the last thing here is, the 183 project, the contract is finally been awarded, and it went to Southgate Constructors, which is a conglomeration of all kinds of companies. It's basically the Northgate, City of 114. We got a new name for that, and it is the Midtown Express. Not sure where that came from or who, I guess it's Texas Road, and so I guess it came from them, but that's the official name now?
That's it.
I
Midtown
don't know where
Express.
to be any of the midtown streets.
Well, I don't think we've reported before. I mean, y'all will get some more frequent updates as we start down this. We had to wait for the contracts to be awarded here before we could even discuss it with them whole lot without vow of secrecy, but I doubt they're going to start. It's probably going to be on 114. Part of it is because they're not quite determined exactly the scope of the work is. So we're still working on it. I guess, yes, factually they will start on 114.
The last I heard it'd be a year.
But we'll be giving you much more frequent reports as we move forward. So with that, that's my announcements. We're even going to be a little strange tonight. I don't know that I have ever experienced the development interest and demand that we're going to figure out now. Y'all want to do it? Shop centers?
Yeah, lately it's been really picking up, the interest, or just some of the big box items that really we thought had died out. But there's some pushing now, and different players coming in that didn't anticipate it.
So it's, we've got a lot of development incentive discussion now with your, we will not finish it by 7, so we'll stick around after our 7 o'clock meeting to reconvene the closed session for that, but we'll get all we can out of this tonight. We're going to lead off with Mr. Collins giving us the development update. And maybe we need it. Yes, sir. Good. And you brought props?
Yes, sir. I'm not going to talk, I'm just going to point.
Alexander did all that today?
Yes, you did. The obvious point of the props, when we start into the development update, I'll give you a little bit further explanation. At the last development update, I did not point to a slide that Stephen put together for us. just to give you kind of a snapshot of the increase in activity from the previous fiscal year 13 to fiscal year 14 in terms of the additional single-family permits. You can see the home values, the number of active subdivisions, the number of permitted lots that are available to be developed, total permit values you can see. And of course, no report of economic activity would be complete without mentioning the number of garage sale permits.
Well, how do you think they're buying those $271,000 houses?
Glade Parks. We obviously, there's a lot of construction activity that is occurring there that you can see before I get into the different areas. When y'all's work ends with the site plan, of course, the work begins for the fire marshal and the building official with the plan review. The inline retail, what is that, 287,000 square feet? That is one set of plans for the finish out of the interior. And then there's another set of plans associated with that, which is the super shell. I'm sorry, that is for Dick's Sporting Goods. But anyway, you get the point that they're big projects and there's a whole lot of plan review that Paul Smith and members of the fire marshal's office, as well as John Sheffield and Jim Moy, in building or completing to get those things released and get it under construction. You know, they're very, very complicated and large projects, and you know, we tell you what we've tried to do to get them underway in the construction. With the phase 1 development, for example, it's such a big project that you can give them an early release to begin the grading, another separate release to begin the installation of the underground utilities, the drainage, and then another permit that enables them to pour the foundation before they even get to obviously going vertical construction with the superstructure. But we're trying to do everything that we can to work with them to get those things under construction and completed as quickly as we possibly can. KHOF is absolutely blowing and going there at Glade Parks. We've got a total of 9 permits that have now been issued for their model homes. If you look at the area where the future gas well site would potentially be located, they've got a requirement to put up the masonry screening wall as one of the requirements that they've got. That is underway and should be completed in the next several weeks. The inline retail, as I just mentioned, is underway. Dave & Buster's is preparing to, they've already got their form boards out, so they should be pouring their foundation very soon, and it looks like the weather's going to hold out and be good for that construction activity.
They poured
This
the
is
parking lot today.
They did? Awesome. Vacation photo that we got of how there have been
That's why
some.
made me stop there.
We have homeless out there?
They're wandering around aimlessly.
Yeah, lost the goose.
There had been some question about whether the height of that was really, what, 14, 16 feet? 14 feet, and we tried to stage this so that you could get some idea of the...
I'm really 7 foot tall.
Absolutely. If you walk out over the bridge, you can see that the trail that will ultimately connect into the trail to the west side of the Rio Grande, and of course connect from the east side to go across to Creekside, has been poured beneath the bridge. The grant that will be awarded will take that trail obviously from the west side to ultimately connect into Heritage Drive. We took a picture of this creek area, so this would be looking west from the 121 South Service Road, and how you said that there were going to be some...
We're going to do a little cleanup in there where we can get a little better picture going through there if you're going 80 miles an hour across 121. There is some cleanup that needs to be done in that creek before we get through that area.
Moving on to the Riverwalk development across from the Lamar development, the Dominion, to the east side of Bear Creek, you can see that the preserve is well underway, and you can begin to see the silhouette of the structures and how it begins to look exactly like the site plan rendition that had been adopted. Dollar General is now open. You can see their grand opening banners on the side of their buildings. Wanted to point out that we've obviously got some interest by the subdivision immediately adjacent to the west. They've had several questions about the operation since they opened. One of their questions dealt with light packs there on that west elevation, and they had some questions about, is there going to be light trespass or glare? And we worked with the contractor on the building, as we would on any other project, that in the event there was any glare or light trespass, they would be able to adjust that. There weren't any necessary here, but we are aware that that will have some impact on the neighborhood, and they are very active with their questioning of that, and so is the operator of the store, for that matter. Dixie House Cafe, we've been reporting to you on multiple occasions over the last year that they had plans to renovate and reopen that restaurant. We now have a meeting scheduled with them the first week in December. The property is actually owned separately. The restaurant is owned by a different entity, so all three parties are going to come together. Y'all typically would have the opportunity after the freeway widening to look at the impacts that it has on the site. We've not had opportunity with them yet, and that will initiate that process to see what impact the right-of-way take on the service road side of their property has had. One of their considerations is going to need to be, and he's talked about this, whether or not they're going to create a secondary entryway there in what we're calling the back of the store. We're going to have to see what they want to do to reconfigure the front in relationship to the fire lane, parking, landscaping, etc. It might just make a whole lot of sense for them to create a second primary entryway into the building from there, because that's where the majority of the parking is, but they can still maintain the front facade and give it the appearance that they want to continue to maintain. What will become the new ASCO continues their renovation, and you can begin to see some of the architectural design elements that they're incorporating into that tower element. And what must be just a whole lot of paint, at least for the second time in the last 18 months, the Boeing facility has repainted in order to rebrand themselves, and they've come in with a new sign, and as part of their new marketing efforts, they're trying to attract birthday parties and special events that might be similar to the audience that's being attracted at It's down the road, is what they're really trying to capture and talking with their manager. And lastly, as part of the update, I know that y'all are aware of the fire that occurred there at Terrace Apartments, and the fire department still has that under investigation from the planning, building code standpoint, and from the code compliance. This is the end building of 3 buildings. The only building directly impacted by the fire was the unit that you see there in the southeast corner. And then there's some other damage there on the north side. But suffice it to say, there's 3 buildings that are all on a single gas service line. The 2 buildings that extend to the west. There were 4 families, I believe, that were directly impacted. They've been relocated to the Concord House property. This obviously has been secured, and it's likely that those buildings will never be occupied again. I believe that's it for the development update, Mr. McCamey.
Any questions on any of that?
Mike, how long do we, the plans like that, after they're stamped and approved, how long do we retain those?
For the commercial,
Yeah.
to say the commercial is forever, the residential, there's a different retention schedule.
But you do keep them forever for the commercial?
Yeah, we
As
have
long
those.
as the structure is still on.
Okay. A lot of cities don't. I think it's great that we do. A lot of cities, Irving for one, keeps nothing after they get a CO, they get rid of it. So there are several cities that only keep them for a couple of years, so I think if we keep them forever, I assume we scan them, keep them electronically.
We're in the process of doing that, yes, sir.
That's excellent.
On Dixie House Cafe, is there any special accommodations made for, complying with rules of what they have to do with their floor plan and all that because they have their portion taken away from?
In anticipation of the NTE project that impacted them several years ago, the City Council adopted an amendment to the ordinance that provided some administrative authority to the city manager that in situations where parking, landscaping, and signage was affected, but not life safety, which typically was the fire lane, they could submit a new site plan that showed whatever new configuration, new sign location, whatever. And again, if it's not life safety, the new ordinance provided the authority of the city manager to provide some administrative relief to that so that they wouldn't continue to be burdened from a non-conforming status. It became an exemption that stayed with the property. So I think of the 26 impacted properties, Stephen, there were 13 properties, I think, that we actually considered that type of exemption that Mr. McCamey evaluated. And unfortunately, the circumstance with Dixie House is we've not had that opportunity to review with them what the consequences of the widening have been.
Most of that, they require to have 10 trees, and you don't have that. Might have been a little bit of parking.
Yeah, but none that anybody fell underneath it. And
It's all been pretty simple.
service.
Dixie House, they need all parking.
Yeah, it looked like theirs was going to be mostly landscaping too, in that front area.
Yeah, it's just obviously as a restaurant business, they want parking in the front.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the rub, is the relationship between the fire lane and the parking.
Notice that a lot of this places, Colorado, where I'm most familiar with, it is not unusual, not having parking. It's all on the side. And sometimes you have two front sides, one freeway. Just the other one back there. It's gonna work out. There'll be an ongoing process on their Concord Terrace to consolidate all those residents into Concord House. So, as up to the fire, the board, fire bill. That's an ongoing process. Any other questions on just development in general before we get to the new bylaws thing? All right, that's, we talked with you potential development down on Highway 10, south side of Highway 10 between Dickey and Cullum. And this revitalization Mike's going to talk to you about that's primarily been written by Stephen. It's something that we need to do to assist that development with earning the points through the alley. I mean,
Federal tax credit.
We'll get it.
We want to familiarize some of you that were not on the council with the senior housing project that had been considered and approved by the city council a couple of years ago. And the reason why I want to tell you about that is because a virtually the exact same kind of program will be proposed, but what makes this opportunity different from what was considered a couple of years ago is when the Evergreen Senior Housing Project was considered, they were only going to take down 5 or 6 acres of property that was located on the south side of Highway 10 between Cullum and Dickey Drive. And what we'd like to share with you is a proposal from the developer of the senior housing to make it part of an overall redevelopment plan that will really have 4 different components that we'll get into. But to kind of set the stage, if we can, for the senior housing, we wanted to give you a little bit of information on what is it that we're talking about with senior housing and talk a little bit about the federal tax credit program. So this is a depiction of the Evergreen project that had been proposed from a couple of years ago to hopefully give you some indication of the overall quality of the architecture, exterior facade, architectural design treatments, the landscaping, some of the attention to detail with seasonal flowers or whatever, just to give you an idea that it would be a quality overall development. An interior shot, again, to hopefully convey an overall quality of what would have been constructed as part of that senior housing. So,
Hey, before you move right there, Mike, when we were going through this several years ago, we took several of our council to, I think it was 3 different places, at least 2. And it was a very, very educational time for us. And since that time, we have sought out another developer that will do this. So as we move through this in the next few weeks, few months, I would strongly encourage you, if you did not get a chance to participate in that, and you'd like to, let us know. We can't take you to the development that's built by this developer, but we can take you to the Evergreen, which is, they tell us they will meet or exceed that level. And I know I came away with a totally different feeling. You hear low income housing, and you have one idea of what that may be. The low income senior housing is a whole different thing.
It was beautiful.
And it is something that, I'm not prepared to say I would want to live in, because I'm not quite there. But if I had parents that were in this area and were looking for a place to put them, it is a great, great place. It's not a nursing, it is absolutely just apartment living for seniors at a very low rate. It's exceptionally low. So I would encourage you, if over the next few weeks, if you get the opportunity, call Mike, call me, call Rheta, and Chris, we'll load you up and take you to a couple of these places. And what it gave us the opportunity to do was talk to the residents and separate apart from the developer and say, tell me what you think about this. And they absolutely love it. Most of them are from out of state. Their kids live here. Their kids live. Encourage them to move in here. The good part about it, I felt like a king because I found out that younger men are like the most sought after commodity around. Even older men were a high commodity because most of them were like a few men that are there, they're not men.
So what's an example of something that stood out as such a difference for you?
It is exceedingly nice. They have a beauty shop there, they have dining, they provided bus service to grocery stores, to doctors, to a little bit of everything. The corridors, I don't know if how many of you get here, but their interior corridors, more like a hotel, that where they're safe. It's a gated community, but they're not even outside. They can walk. It's very independent living. It is just exceptionally nice. But the rent rates are unbelievable for those who qualify. And I don't know all the tricks of the trade, but these people are not really low income. They've divested themselves of their assets somewhere along the way, and they're in very, very they qualify. The people that we took were exceptional.
The grounds were beautiful, the activities were amazing, they had barbecue pits, I mean, they had everything that you want. I'd live there in a heartbeat. I was very surprised by how great it was.
The most impressive was what the people had to say about it, the people, the residents, they loved it. So that's not being helpful to take this.
The next several slides have a lot of information, and it was really done intentionally, but the take-home message is that associated with the federal tax credit program are very, very strict compliance standards that have to be maintained over a 40-year period of time associated with this property. Specifically with the term of the loan, the question was asked when the senior housing was first proposed with deed restricted at 55 and older, well, could that revert to market rate multifamily? And the answer to that question is no. The terms that the federal government established is no, it can't revert back to the market. There are any number of requirements that we could go into a great deal of detail, that if the concept of the senior housing were to be supportive, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, y'all would be hearing a more detailed presentation on December the 9th as you were asked to consider some resolution of support that would basically say, yes, we like the senior housing and we would like the developer to make application to the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs for that federal tax credit. So you would be hearing a great deal of detail about the senior housing.
Did you define seniors as 55 or older?
I know. That's what the federal government does with that. There are multiple hoops that have to be jumped through in order to qualify for the federal tax credit program. One of the criteria is that the location of the proposed senior housing must be in an area that's defined as a revitalization area. And we would like to tell you a little bit about what that is all about. I think I got ahead of myself. In the area that we've identified on this graphic, that is going to be the undeveloped area that the proposed developments that we're going to go over for you would be located. This would be part of a larger area that would be referred to as a revitalization area. And the bottom line with this, and we can get into a whole bunch of jargon, we can talk about a bunch of different specific information from a demographic standpoint, from a capital investment standpoint, from the public investment that are made in the area, from public partnerships with Six Stones that deal with individual properties, from capital improvement programs over a long period of time, over comprehensive zoning. I mean, all of these things are designed to be able to say within this defined revitalization area that there have been public and private monies that have contributed to an overall revitalization of that area. And within that area that is under revitalization, these particular census tracts were obviously selected because it met the demographic income thresholds that was necessary in order for the federal tax credit program to develop a program to serve low-income residents within the area. And as Mr. McCamey was alluding to earlier, to suggest low income, there are any number of ways that when you are a senior, you can define your income in order to qualify for eligibility to live in these senior housing properties. So, as Mr. McCamey was indicating earlier as well, Stephen Cook has spent a lot of time working with the developer to put together this revitalization plan, to identify the target areas, to establish all of the, within the criteria that has been established in order to define it as a revitalization area, that it indeed meets all of the criteria. What is the length of that document now, Stephen?
It's about 18 pages.
18 pages, and it's full of a lot of different information. It establishes the amount of CDBG monies that have been spent to upgrade infrastructure in the area. It specifically highlights the individual homes within the target area that have benefited from the CPR program. 95 homes within that area have benefited from the CPR. And it gives us a little bit of an opportunity to talk about the minimum housing program and what it's done to individual properties within that area. And one of those properties that we're going to be talking to you about is the Alexander Lane Apartments that was formerly known as the Emerald Garden Apartment. and we'll tell you a little bit about that property and what the minimum housing program has done for that. Am I going too fast on that revitalization, or do I need to get in any greater detail with you on what that's trying to capture in order to establish that as a revitalization area?
So I have one question for you. I understand if it's within the city of Euless, but on the slide you got Fort Worth involved because you're going all the way to Bear Creek. Are they on board as well?
Actually, it's all staying to the north, and if we depicted any of the area, the target area, we will obviously, that's part of the census tract, will cross the city boundaries, but in terms of the demographic profile, even it can include portions of Fort Worth as long as it's in the census tract.
There's a few kind of trigger words on there that I've been a little sensitive to. The blighted structure. There's no effort to say that, you know, if you're in that census tract in those three, you live in a blighted area. But there are buildings down there that are blighted. For example, the Euless Pharmacy on South Main, that's been vacant for years and years and years. It is a blighted building. We off and tore down a blighted building down there on South Main for several years. And there's others. So it's not, I hate to use blight because it refers to some area. It is not the area, it's the specific structures. To just one check mark off the list that there are blighted structures in the area. And the target area sounds bad in and of itself, but that is something that HUD defined years ago. Our target areas have been Midway Park and then portions of South Euless have been for years, and it still exists. I lived in a target area, still on property down there. It's nothing bad, it's just the income levels for that target area qualifications.
We started out talking that when the original senior housing project had been proposed a couple of years ago, that was not part of a bigger redevelopment plan for the entirety of the area. Well, when this developer for this new senior housing came into us, we lifted up, could there be an opportunity that you could encompass the remaining undeveloped acreage that you don't need for the senior housing and include that in the development, because we emphasized to them that there's a broader redevelopment goal that we would like to see whatever development occurs there as a catalyst for the redevelopment up and down Alexander Lane and just continue to the south of that area and really serve as a catalyst for a broader redevelopment effort. So they've been really, really wonderful to work with, and what they came forward with was a commercial component, a component of single-family detached that they're in active negotiations with Don Dykstra with Bloomfield Homes to take a portion of their property, the Cannon Gardens subdivision that's across the street from the elementary school. You might remember the meeting that y'all had approved for that. It basically would be to lift up those PD standards and apply them to the single-family development. And then a fourth component would be the role that the existing apartments could play towards that overall redevelopment. So again, to go over the acreage, again, this basically shows you the different ownership associated with this area. 3.4 acres under separate ownership, 11 acres under separate ownership. The 1.6 acres is the location of the Alexander Lane apartments. The tracks to the east of the apartments on the east and west side of Dickey Drive, of course, are the city-owned properties. And then the out parcel in this area, of course, is the yacht club that they continue to negotiate with, but that apparently does all right financially, and they're not exactly motivated sellers.
Does the yacht club, do they also own the 0.22 acres? Is that?
No, this is a, yes, I'm sorry, they do.
Okay, that's all one.
Yeah.
Parcel.
Yeah. So the 4 different land uses in just a real conceptual layout that just could give you an indication of if those land uses could be acceptable. This is one variation, one attempt at showing you conceptually where the land uses might go. So at the hard corner of Cullum and Highway 10 would be the commercial retail. They would propose on the little less than 2 acres that you could have about 15,000, 16,000 square foot of retail. So that would be in comparison to the typical out parcel at Glade Parks where Potbelly, AT&T, Monarch, there's a 4th use that I can't remember. That's about a 10,000 square foot building. So they would propose obviously something that would be about 50% larger than that. And then as you move east from the commercial corner, staying north of the park area, would be the single-family detached product. And again, dealing with Don Dykstra to take down, I think in a conceptual layout to get the 5,500 square foot lots, there would be 32 or 33 lots, I believe is what could be created within that area. And then as you continue to the east towards Dickey Drive on the south side of Highway 10, that would be the location of the senior housing product. What had been considered a couple of years ago was a 3-story product. They would be proposing a 4-story product in the area on a little bit smaller footprint than had been proposed a couple of years ago. And then they would introduce what they would refer on the perimeter of that horseshoe, what did they call it? Cottages that would enable independent living within a single-story structure as opposed to the multifamily or the lease space within the multi-story senior housing, just as another alternative for the senior housing as opposed to that 4-story product.
You see that a lot. I think we talked to you recently about a product that went in Southway that has that. You go over here to
Park Place.
Hospital. Yeah, they got that over there. And that's, if you're a little well-heeled and mom and dad still in the picture, and maybe mom and dad over there, and the dad passes away, the mom goes in the other, kind of typical scenario. That's just the most modern way to handle it.
So the 4th element that we would be talking about would be what was formerly known as the Emerald Gardens, that is now Alexander Lane. The owners probably, by their own admission, would acknowledge that they might have paid a little bit more for that property than the market suggested it was worth. And for sure what they would acknowledge is that they've put a little bit more into the property than they perhaps should. They probably, between the purchase and what they put into the property, they couldn't get out of it today. They couldn't buy it for what they put it in. So I guess what we are trying to lift up is that the master developer is trying to lift up a set of conditions under which those apartments could become part of the overall redevelopment. That could you do some things with the exterior, with landscaping, with streetscape elements to make that as an asset for the overall development? Could you create it in such a way that if you were the child of the individual who was considering moving into the senior housing, if you drove by that, would you consider either living in that yourself, or if you drove by it, would you feel comfortable with your mom or dad being that senior housing? The reason why they think that that might be possible is the efforts that the owner has taken to date with that property. They have gone through a significant renovation of that property. It's not visible from the outside right now because they've chosen to spend all of the money in the interior of those units. Mr. McCamey and Ms. Getchell had opportunity to tour that a couple of weeks ago, and if you had the opportunity, we can certainly make an arrangement. I don't want to speak for them in that, but I think we all walked away very, very surprised at the overall quality of what that interior finish out looked like. And what their intention is to continue that renovation from inside the complex to the exterior. So what we have begun to discuss with them in specifics is to take streetscape, landscaping, architectural design elements that will be incorporated into the senior housing and into the overall development, talking with Don Dykstra, talking with the developer of the senior housing, what can you incorporate into that existing apartment to, again, continue to improve the overall enhancement. What they've also done is not just dollars and cents in terms of construction activity for the interior renovation. They've actually changed the tenant mix within the property. They are now going through I'm searching for words, Mr. Payne, a very sophisticated qualification standard for the folks that will occupy that. They're doing the credit checks, they're doing the background checks. They're maintaining a tenant profile that's basically enabling them to get a resident that's going to be there longer term and can pay the little bit higher rent that they're starting to be able to enjoy because of the renovation of that property.
We'll get you much more information on that. It's what it's called.
So in combination with the commitment on the owner, his actions to date, the continuation of the minimum housing inspection program, working in partnership with Don Dykstra and Gardner Capital that would develop the senior housing, we would like to be able to bring forward for your consideration a set of conditions that would make it possible to incorporate that complex into the overall redevelopment plan.
The 8 houses that are sitting on what was the big apartments that we own now, who's anticipating building there? Is that extra or?
Well, that's part of the evaluation that they are considering right now. Our pitch to the master developer is, how can you utilize the city-owned property for the greatest benefit to the overall development? That might mean what could mean the greatest value to you to try to get back some of the investment that you're making in the rest of the development. It might be just a straight-up sale to Don Dykstra, a single family, but we basically got to put that in their court to say, you tell us collectively what you think brings the best value to the overall development.
Overall, it's a huge win for that corner of the city. It would be a huge win if we could get this thing to actually fly.
Yeah, we're looking for like 3 things tonight. One is just that, do you like the concept? Secondly, is the resolution that we need to be bringing to you. We might talk about this in a minute. And then thirdly is the revitalization plan. And the second and third is what we would need you to consider at your next meeting. So walk through the details of that kind of quickly.
Right. There's a lot of steps in the process ultimately before this could become a reality, specifically associated with the submittal of the application for the federal tax credit. The council is going to be asked to do several different things. First is a resolution. It might be 3 resolutions. The point is you would be taking 3 specific actions within a resolution or a series of 3 resolutions. The first would be a acceptance of the revitalization plan, okay? A resolution supporting that, and secondly, that a support for the senior housing as an integral component of the overall revitalization plan. 2 separate actions. And then the third action that you would be asked to consider would be dealing with specifically the financing mechanism that would be used in order for them to maximize the award of points that could then lead to them qualifying for the federal tax credit. And Ms. Getchell is going to go over that in great detail during your closed session based on visits with the developer and their banker just this afternoon.
And just so you know, I don't leave you hanging for an hour here. There's no, in that third bullet point, there's no city tax dollars in that. That's a financing mechanism that is used. For those of you that were around when we went through this with Tony Sis and Evergreen years ago, there was a huge number of resolutions in that. All this is a highly competitive process through the Texas Department of Housing, whatever.
Community Affairs.
But it's highly competitive, and each of those little deals there is a point. There are a few points that they get on their rank, so they need that. There's no city tax dollars in that at all. It's, we'll describe that. I just want to make you hang here. Here in an hour or two, you're going to have to be asked to commit millions of dollars. You have to now.
So the January, February timeframe, if y'all were to approve the resolutions that enable them to submit the application, we would be working on a planned development. You might recall in the Glade Parks PD, y'all considered the PD that divided different land uses into sub-districts and had its own development standards, et cetera, et cetera. We've basically taken that model and applied it to that area so that you would have the different land uses, including the existing apartments that they would, those conditions that we were talking about, under which they could become part of the overall development, that would codify in that PD. You would be asked to consider a PD along with a detailed site plan associated with the senior housing.
I like the project like I did previously, but I don't recall the word blight in the last project, so is there any way we can find a different word?
Well, we talked about that the other day.
I don't like that word. I don't think it really applies.
Well, to the individual structures, it does. Again, if you look at just, the best example is that old U.S. Pharmacy, Girls River Fire Station, that's just free. Because I got done on this with them the other day, and if you ask me to go back, we can try to find a way to get around it, but that.
What, Mr. Bynum, what the conditions of the plan state? There are several, about 8 to 15 different types of things to be addressed by a revitalization plan, and in fact, it asks for the revitalization plan to focus on 5. And what it's saying is that it's not saying that these are blighted areas. What it is that there is a presence or potential presence of blighted structures. And once you get the final draft of the plan to consider, what you're going to see is that there is ways that the City of Euless in the past, continuing and into the future, has active programs to make sure that there is a lack of blighted structures in those areas through economic development, through the CPR program, through the minimum housing inspection program. It is an active part on capital investment, time investment, and personnel investment that this city has had a history of in this area to make sure that this is an area that we see that has been identified through income levels, through age, that we don't make this into a blighted area. So the word specifically is not that this is blight, it is that there are presence of blighted structures, and that we show through this plan that we are rectifying any of those processes.
Let me ask you this, because it kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth. If we identify by attachment two blighted structures, one is the pharmacy, and it is absolutely blighted because they have no parking, it's a non-compliant building, that's why it's still sitting there. And then the thing that we bought several years ago, that was the old U.S. grocery, which is gone, and we own it now. If we identified those two, where we could hit the marks, would that make you feel better?
That would make me feel a lot better.
Because it's,
If I lived there, I wouldn't appreciate that word.
I mean, I know them, I lived down there when we went through another area that hurt a number of years ago. I kind of resented it.
Because that area's made huge improvements. I mean,
So,
we have new homes in that area.
but I mean, anybody that you ask that lives down there, I mean, they will point to those same
Oh, yeah.
properties.
Yeah.
Right?
I've been
Is that
down there.
possible to lift up two examples by having?
I don't know, but we will certainly find out.
If that would make you feel better, right?
Isn't there another building just down from the,
South of Julie's.
Yeah.
South of City.
There's another, that's right, there's a third.
yeah, that's just a school?
The old law
That's
center.
really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we could do that, if that would make you feel better.
Yeah.
let's do that.
So while we're speaking on all of this, and we have some, and just shake your head if I need to shut up, but is there an opportunity there that we could maybe turn this into some sort of rebate program for citizens, for property owners, that if they want to put some money in to rebuild their blighted structure, the city would have some funds from the 8 houses, or the developer would have some funds in escrow that would help assist with some sort of rebate program?
The short answer is yes. I mean, if they're not through this, within that revitalization period, yes. Specific.
3 tracks, right?
Yeah. If we want to say we're going to sell that sticky apartment property and put that money into something like that, yeah. Yeah, we currently, we really got that through our home program, Tarrant County home program, which is income qualified, CPR, but if you want to expand that, that's a larger conversation. But within that zone, absolutely. So with that, we'll explain the financing here a little bit, but just in general terms, the development, you like that, we'll explain in much greater detail the strategy of the 1.6 acre apartments.
Because that's a segment of our population that's growing, and we really haven't done a great job in trying to find housing for that segment of our population. So I support 110%.
That's one of the most common requests I get in senior housing.
I agree with you.
That and revitalizing south of 183. I mean, this hits it all.
And getting a grocery store.
Yeah.
Work on that.
Okay, so we'll bring that to you at your next meeting, and we'll work on those details. All right, thanks, Mayor. Ms. Jewell is going to bring us our financial report. And she's going to do this rather quickly because you will get the full meal deal in the council meeting for our larger audience.
Because I know you want to hear it close. All right. This is the report for the period ending September 30th, 2014. This is for the 12th and final month of fiscal year 2014. As you can see, at the end of September, the fund balance for the majority of the governmental and governmental operating and debt service funds increased over the year. Most of this can be contributed to the strong economy. Funds that decreased in fund balance for the year include the hotel motel fund, which had an approved down in fund balance adopted for the fiscal year, and seized assets funds where revenues are not consistent or predictable, reserves are not required, and are planned to be used. In the proprietary funds, the service center, drainage fund, Texas Star Sports Complex, and the golf course funds have all shown an increase in fund balance for the fiscal year. The water and wastewater, recreational class, and Texas Star Golf Course Reserve and debt service funds all had planned drawdowns of one-time money this fiscal year. And as we have discussed, the majority of this year, our water consumption was running low this year and ended up being 13% less than estimates, as well as our revenue per gallon was $3.86 when we budgeted for $3.91 per gallon. This is most likely due to the conservation efforts and timing of rainfall during 2014. As discussed over the last couple of months, any shortage was covered by the rate stabilization fund. Our internal service funds, all three were planned to draw down fund balance during 2014. The insurance and risk funds are showing an increase still, but year-end accruals are still being processed. All three funds are in line with expectations. Overall, we began the year with $40.5 million in fund balance, and at the end of the year, we have combined fund balance of $41.25 million. Capital project funds have been used during, have used their funds during the year for the majority of major projects as planned and shown an overall decrease of $833,000 for the fiscal year. Citywide, most revenue categories came in better than expected for the year. However, as mentioned, charges for services, especially those from the water and wastewater fund, did not meet expectations. As mentioned, the water consumption down 13%, as well as the per gallon revenue factor contributed greatly to this, as well as at the golf course. We had planned on the course being closed for the renovations, but 61 adverse weather days were significantly more than expected for the golf course, as well as other outside athletic facilities. As of the end of September, operating revenues were $3 million greater than last year and $3.2 million greater than budgeted expectations. Overall, operating expenditures are more than prior year by $6.1 million, but we're under current year budget expectations by $4.6 million or 4.42%. The general fund ended the year at $35.4 million, which is 104.3% of budget revenues, which is almost $1.5 million greater than budgeted expectations. Property tax revenues exceeded both prior year collections as well as current year expectations, as denoted in the black line. Sales tax collections were strong this year. Total sales tax collections in the general fund, including the $0.25 for property tax reduction, ended the year up $719,000 or 7% over budget. The 1 cent sales tax revenue, including accruals through the end of the fiscal year, exceeded budget by $571,000. October receipts were up 14.27%. November receipts were up 10.58%, both of which were accrued back to 2014. The 2014 collections exceeded both prior years as well as budgeted expectations. Municipal court revenues vary from month to month and are based on case volume as well as timing of payments. And for 2014, this revenue exceeded both prior year as well as budget expectations. Development revenues also vary widely from month to month and exceeded budget expectations and prior year collections, as Mr. Collins had pointed out earlier. This increase is related mainly to the building permits that he was talking about, not necessarily the garage sale permits. General fund expenses totaled $34 million, or 94% of the appropriated budget. Car rental tax collections also continued to come in strong during the year. Total revenues, including year-end accruals, exceeded budget by $642,000. October collections were down 2%, but November was back up 6%. Overall, this fund ended the year with over $1 million more in fund balance than originally budgeted. And water and wastewater fund ended the year with total revenues of $20.3 million, which was $506,000 less than budget, primarily due to the decreased consumption we're discussing. Total expenses in the water and wastewater fund ended the year at 95.8% of budget, which is $885,000 under our original budget estimates. After the rate stabilization usage, this fund showed a decrease of $10,000 for 2014. At the Texas Star Golf Course, actual rounds for the year were down 10.2% compared to budget and 38.4% compared to the prior year due to the days closed for weather and remodeling. Revenues per round ended the fiscal year at $48.52, which is more than our budgeted expectations. Total revenues of almost $4 million were $139,000 above budget. Combined with operating overages of $149,000, the golf course ended the year with a net operating income of $665,000, and after factoring in debt and capital expenses, they ended the year with a net gain of $7,000. Texas Star Sports Complex ended the year with revenues of $1.5 million, which was $37,000 above expectations. Operating expenses of $1.3 million were $28,000 more than budgeted, but resulted in net operating income of $204,000. After factoring in debt and capital This facility had a net gain of $37,000. And we plan to present the audited financial statements for the fiscal year ended 9/30/2014 at your second meeting in January. But if you have any questions, we have to take them for you.
On the waterways for the funds, have we, I know we get that, we catch that in the years. Where do we end up with that? On the TRA payments?
They won't settle that up until May,
Okay.
so we don't have that settled up yet.
Okay. All right. Thank
It was a
you.
bad year.
I know it was.
But every water provider around had a really bad year.
Yeah.
You've got a collision of the rates for getting people's attention, the conservation measures for getting people's attention. It's, everybody around us is having the same problem. It might have been a big problem this year.
Do nothing to get worse too.
Yeah, it's a problem that everybody's going to be struggling with. I suspect this is a big topic for discussion in the work session. Thank goodness that we got that price up. But water is a huge concern. Both availability and affordability.
I got your questions. Their fiscal year doesn't end at the same time as ours. That's the reason for the delay. They don't end their fiscal year until November 30th. And then they use the next 5-6 months to reconcile and stuff like that.
Thank you.
I'd like to congratulate the golf course for being shut down for 3 months and everything else that went on to show a net, it's not a huge number, but to show a net profit is just a testament to the whole crew out there. That's really incredible.
Yeah, that one did really good this year at the park that started. They were flying after a lot of weather days. So that's good. The budget as a whole came out very good. We had a few areas that was over, but unfortunately we had a whole lot more areas that was under, but for 94%
Yes.
the budget we worked. So that's just the way life goes sometimes. And it's particularly some of our unexpected expenses. Wes over there did a real good job managing his budget, but his fire truck got killed for old Kyle.
You can't take them off road. I think that's.
But that's just the way it goes sometimes. But our job overall is manage the overall budget. I'm pretty proud of that. Bringing in 94%. So our director's department has all did a really good job this year. Appreciate that. And Janina, she did okay as well.
Keep track of the numbers.
We understand the probation. Any questions? You get full meal deal at the 7 o'clock meeting. And we thought we could get to the police department last time, and there was plenty of time to get to you, but somebody there at the end kind of took more than their fair share. I won't call any names, but
My good friend, fire department.
yeah.
They do love to Well, we'll start out with our police communications statistics. We still seem to be holding pretty steady at about 1 minute and 9 seconds turning around our 41 calls. That has slipped a little bit, and that has slipped due to the fact that we were training 2 dispatchers. At the time, one of them made it through training, the other resigned during training, so now we're back to trying to find another dispatcher. That is a very tough job, and not just anybody can go in there. I heard one lady said, "You talk on the phone, you'll do something." So it's a little bit more difficult than that, but we continue to watch those times critically. Our fire department, that is, I know Wes showed you a statistic. The last time of their emergency calls, they rolled out in 48 seconds, something like that, 49 seconds. That 1 minute and 8 seconds, that's for all fire calls that come in. And what Wes was focused on is just emergency calls.
And this is, I'm sorry Mr. Barker's not here, this is his favorite part of my presentation, when we talk about non-committed time for our patrol officers. We're at 42.2% non-committed. That has come back to us a little bit. I think last time we were around 41%, something like that. What we want to do is, like I said, we want to get 50-55% with that statistic. And what will drive that is as we get more people out of training. We have 5 in training. We have 2 in the academy. And we have 7 officers out with some type of injury. So you can tell as soon as we get everybody back working, that number should come back to us in a big way. So, talk about the crime itself. Crimes against persons, that's the one where we talk about robberies and assaults of a certain time. We tend to be trending down. October seems to be the only month where we've shown an increase, but you go from 0.07 to 0.13 per thousand. You know, you have a blip, but it's a very small blip on our. But for the year, we are down significantly in crimes against persons.
But Mike, that is not necessarily stranger on stranger.
That is true. We have very little stranger on stranger crime. Most of our crimes committed, most of those crimes against persons come in the form of family violence. We work anywhere from, I would say, 25 to 33 of those incidents a month. And the more you work, the higher that number gets. But we have very, very little stranger on stranger. And property crime, that continues to trend down for us over the last quarter. I can't say anything other than it's just, as Tony Burnett would say, it's chief, it's our education programs and our citizens on patrol. That's what's driving those numbers down. So I don't have an answer for it, but I'll take his. That seems to be a trend for the year too. We seem to be trending down. If you remember, there's some grant money that goes out to our neighboring cities, and it's directly tied to their crime rate. We don't get those funds because our crime rate continues to be low enough that we don't qualify for those grant funds.
So with all this development going on, and if there were tools stolen or copper wire removed, is that a property crime?
That is property.
And so we're still doing good.
We're still doing very well with that. Our guys and gals out on patrol, especially at night, they're very active around those construction sites. And we've been fairly fortunate the last few weeks to talk to a few of those people. And even though we say it's kind of like a multi-level marketing plan, once you take one of them out, your cousin comes in or something. But we've been pretty fortunate about rounding some of those people up and making some fairly good arrests when it comes to property crimes, especially around our construction areas.
Mike, do we have much of, on the new construction, do we have much appliances being stolen or property?
Well, we have not had, I read a couple of weeks ago where they had come in and tried to steal the new appliances out of a newly constructed home. And that's really what we get really sensitive about as those housing communities come online and they're getting ready for people to move into them. That's our biggest fear, is that somebody will come in and kind of clean those out. Usually what we find in those is it's someone connected in the delivery of them or in the construction of the home, and they know when they're there, when they're going to be there, and it's a short window that can happen. But we've been very fortunate not to be overrun with that right now.
Additionally, if you go out to the Lenard development on Fairview Parkway, or to the what is the name of that, NDL, RDL, LRP, NRT, the surveillance that they've got, that's, because that's where you're really at risk when they go in there and they install 200 sets of appliances. But they got pretty good surveillance system set up. So pay attention when you go out there, because you're on Canada cameras. I don't know what impact that's having, but I've noticed.
Yeah, but it has to have some impact, because it's just not us. I mean, it's our education programs, it's people, as I always said about our good friends at the fire department, we did a great job with Smokey the Bear, because only you can for a home fire, right? So, and the police are kind of slow to uptake to help people understand that it's really up to them to help us help them keep their stuff. Okay, these are two new hires. These guys are in the academy. Jonathan Martinez, great kid, and I think this might be one of the first full-time jobs he's ever had. And we're very proud of him. We think he's going to go out there and he's going to do a great job in the academy, and then he's going to come and plug right in and do us a great job. Now, Edward Cavallero, he is retired, 20-year retired. He retired as an investigator with NYPD, and came to us. His brother works out in Roanoke, I think, and we met him, and he tested with us with PAC, and said he wanted to get out of New York City and raise he's got a daughter that's like 5 years old, so he didn't want to raise her in the city, and wanted to come out this way where the grass is greener and
Come out to the country.
come out this country. where they could all ride horses back and forth to school. But, no, he's,
Grass is greener.
yeah, we look for great things from him. He's got a wealth of experience. The formula that we have done that's proven to be very successful with all of our out-of-state officers is that we enroll them in the academy for like the first 6 or 8 weeks, let them get the basic of Texas criminal law, traffic law, and code of criminal procedure, and then they're able to successfully challenge the state test, and then we bring them out of the academy basically 8-9 weeks early, and we plug them in field training, and they seem to excel with that formula. So, Jonathan, he'll have to be there the whole time, but hopefully we can get Edward out quick and plug him in and put him to work. I think he's going to do us a great job. Like I said, the wealth of experience and just very glowing reports from him from New York in my view.
Questions or comments from the police department? Wes, any comments?
It was all right.
I didn't have any pictures of fire trucks or, you know, when we work, we're all working, and when they work, they got people that stand around and take pictures. But maybe if we get some of these people out training, we get the cameraman.
Sure. Kyle, you said that you might be willing to delay.
Yes, sir.
I think it's your lucky day.
I can do that.
That's good.
No, I did have a picture of the fire truck in the shop. So. Sorry, man. It seemed to be there.
Real quickly, Hal left something, did everybody get this?
Yes, sir.
Hal left something there from a capital project update on how long, I think we reported that to you earlier. This is one of those things we're on hate because when sidewalks become like a government boondoggle, but it's they poured it wrong, so we got to hold our feet to the fire.
They're painful, so, right?
Yeah, they'll pay for it. But it's.
That letter went out to all the residents today.
Yeah, and you're gonna wait till the next day, January,
It'd be after the first year when it come back to finish.
weather permitted. If you've been down there, that's a really nice looking project. And the sidewalks that they poured, it's not, it's a slight discrepancy, but it doesn't mean ADA. So they got fixed. And they knew that, and they did it. They knew what the requirement was.
Yes,
They didn't know they could wrong.
But they had to fix the intersection as well, right?
They had fixed the intersection.
Is this a known contractor that we use?
Yeah, his problem is getting enough manpower to do the project. That's why he's late. That's why he's having problems at Fort Worth now, and that's why we gave him a tentative release. He was getting beat up by the newspapers as well over there. And so we're at the point now we can basically use it. He just got to finish a few things. Hopefully the irrigator's been working to repairs, and we hope to have all the grass in place next week. And then there'll be a few other things that we'll get him to do before he comes back. He just has a manpower problem. He's had it the whole project.
That is somewhat education for construction. He's not a bad guy. He's nice. I've done it. They've done that project. It is late. Okay, we can look at our agenda now. Carol, you want to do it?
No.
Carolyn used the excuse that her office was disrupted this week, and she didn't have to move after all, I guess. Anyway, Mr. Jewell will give the implications led by the mayor. Employee of the month for December is Mr. Scott Bowden, which I expect one of those jobs that not everybody sees. Office do, but these are selected by an employee group. That's a pretty good conference. So you'll be here.
Yes, you will.
Don't expect much of a speech from him. Then you get your financial report. Item number 3 is renewal of bid 003-14 for the HVAC system maintenance. Kyle, anything on that?
No, it's been a very, very successful program.
That's, if you had heard Kyle's report, and I want you to hear it, maybe at our next meeting, something you don't think about is we have added tons of square feet. We have not added people. Actually, he's got fewer people than he used to have. The coping mechanism is our contracts. And this company here, they do all of the, you call that preventive maintenance.
They do our PM work, any major components they replace.
So it relieves a lot of our personnel. Item number 4 is authorizing the purchase of audio-visual equipment for the city council chambers. One correction on this, this went out Friday. It had a mistake, and talked with Wayne, our outhouse counsel, and Ken, our in-house counsel, and determined that it was not a flaw that we couldn't live with, but that is actually not through tip stats, that is through
TCPN.
TCPN. And this is pretty well described in here. Betsy and Mr. Joyce and I went last week to TCU to look at an example of what these people's work is. Do you have anything you want to show me?
I'm not sure you're
Leave it to Betsy. She who had a baseball wedding, and a baseball party, a baseball picture. But go ahead.
Just wanted to show you, we're proposing a video wall in the council chambers rather than rear projection that we have now bouncing off of several different mirrors. It'll be a lot brighter, be a lot easier to see with the Swagit. The only difference that's going to be probably noticeable, I would bet, the first meeting is that the bezels around the monitors form a line just in between, and you can see it better on this. Once you're looking at what's on the screen, it really does not become that noticeable anymore. But I did want to make you aware it'll be different than what you're used to. You will also, all the seats at the dais will have confidence monitors in front of them, so it'll be, I think a 19-inch monitor on a tilt mount just right in front of you, so you'll be able to see it very easily. We'll leave the rear screen, we'll still just have the projector, and then we'll move the projector from down here up there as kind of a backup if anything should go wrong with it. The equipment in there is from 2003 and has held up really well. Just a couple other examples.
How is the size compared to what's in there now?
It'll be larger, and it'll be 16:9 ratio, so more the wide definition versus more the square of what we have now.
You really understand that?
Couldn't get the Jerry Jones.
They lost me on that. Once they explained it to me, I understood it, but
You understand the 16:9 ratio?
I don't understand it. What finally sold me on this is when the man that did it showed a picture of his $2 and it had a face blown out of there. But I was concerned it would, you know, you wouldn't show a picture of somebody that wouldn't have a nose or they have a really wide one. But it really does kind of go away. That's a good example of it there. This is all intended to prepare us for the installation of these flagging systems that will occur. All of this will occur in January, and for the recording of that, and it will enhance the experience for the person in the room as well as those that may watch it, whatever means they choose to watch it as it's sent out. All that will take place in January. It'll give us a whole lot more capability. The learning process to learn how to use it, it's much more capability. And then for a long-term, another ad, if you were to go behind this wall right here, there is a rather large room right there that is the rear projection. And what that will ultimately, and I'll take this as a recommendation to do it in the next few months, but ultimately it will allow us to expand this room a little bit because that room in there will no longer be needed for the rear projection. Likewise, if at some point in time we replace this, there is another room behind that that is 8 or 10 feet that will allow a little expansion for the time that you continue to grow through the years and kind of ramp through the years. So, and a crowd enlarged through the years. So that will be a plus. So it's kind of excited. I was not sure about this to begin with, but that's why we made the trip to TCU. And these are really good people that are doing this. But through, say it again,
TCP.
And Wayne, is there any?
I was just gonna say, I'm gonna point that out in here.
Okay. And that's adequate, just Loretta pointed out there, that it's through
Due to
TCU.
that contract, yeah, the posting is adequate, so I thought we'd just explain it to the distinction in the posting, what we're actually doing. That's
And that is just two different purchasing clauses. Usually it says on state contracts, but it's purchasing clauses.
Betsy, what's the reliability if one of these panels were to go out? Is it just plug and play, just pull one out, put another?
You should be able to use the other ones without a problem, and then I think the commercial ones come with a 3-year warranty. So should be pretty good.
And then you said that we're gonna take this projector and put it there. What's the overall thing?
This projector back here,
Right.
the one that sits behind you guys, will then be moved up to the one that you currently face. We didn't really see any need to do a second video wall back there. There are very few people that actually look at that. So if
Right.
you guys have the monitors in front of you, you should be able to see very
That's
well.
what I thought it was actually gonna go away, so you're just
Yeah.
gonna put it back up.
Well, yeah, we'll just leave it back there for now and have a
No,
backup projector.
There was some thought to it going away, but during town hall meetings, there's lots of times that it's used, that people are not at the dais for the town as well. So this will go, these bulbs, for these things are like $1,000. So, and they don't, this will just give us a spare projector. You won't see any change back there in the monitor.
The projectors now are about 4,500 lumens, and then this will provide closer to 10,000 lumens. It'll be much brighter, much easier to see, larger, better quality, better resolution.
And apparently, if you know technology, that's just the thing of the fact.
Is there any sound system component upgrades associated with this too?
For the most part, it'll stay the same. We really haven't had too many issues with the sound in there. So they'll be doing some upgrades on the Crestron system that controls it. I'm sorry, the voting system, the display will be upgraded a little bit, so it'll be easier to read as well. But the microphones and everything should be about the same.
And then for Kim, the other secretaries involved for planning and zoning or the park board, they'll have some understanding about operations.
Quick comment, I heard a couple of complaints at our last meeting that we're not being heard in the audience.
Well, that's, they may need to control the sound a little better. I think it was at the last meeting, we had some issue with the microphone. That is human error.
No, I'm talking about
No,
out dice.
Oh, you couldn't hear it there?
No, the people in the audience said they couldn't hear us in the dice,
That's-
not in the podium.
Scott.
Okay.
So there's plenty of sound there.
We got to turn the microphone on, too. I find myself forgetting that quite often.
Typically, if our sound system works well, it's, whatever we do that, particularly when somebody.
I know it's operator usually in my
Yeah,
part.
he's got it on, they don't realize it, and they'll push the button and he turns it off. That's great.
And also, Perry, we're probably by the next meeting, we're working to have somebody come out and just turn the overall volume up of that system. It's something we can't do on the touch panel there, but just make everything just a little bit louder.
Yeah, I just had a couple of people come to that meeting. Y'all might as well talk among yourselves, because we can't hear you out here.
You know, I've had
Sorry,
some
I
of that
didn't know.
myself, and it's typically people sit on the back row, and it's kind of hurt.
But you gotta get there early to get the back row.
Anyway, this will be an overall software upgrade, and the voting system will be tweaked, but it's a lot more to it than just that. I think it was me. That's the part that will be most noticeable, the reason we wanted to do it. All right, item number 5 is consider authorizing us to negotiate and execute an architectural service contract with Oxley, Williams, and Stark Architects. This is for the development engineering building. This is, it's in our budget this year. It is, the building itself is not in the budget. So we've had clear discussion with the architect that we've selected, that we will go through the year with the planning, the schematic plan that will help the plaza planning as well. And then there is still a kind of a stop-go point in our next budget preparation of whether we do the building. And there should be just some decision not to do the building. It's in our 5-year budget, but it obviously you got the opportunity not to do the building. If you don't do it, they're not paid for the rest of the work. They'll be paid for the work project. So this is a neat group of young people that came from another larger architectural firm, Brent Seven, so we're really impressed with it. That's what that is. Item number 6 is 30 minutes. Item number 7 is the item we talked a little bit about at our last meeting regarding the amendment to Chapter 42, defining the definition of smoking to include vaping, and also what an electronic vaping device is defined. So, questions on that? All right, item number 8 is a site plan 14-15 for 1201 Royal Parkway. Mike, you're cutting into dinner time.
Ms. Roberts is the owner of Ricochet Fuels. They would use the existing Southern Drive approach off of Royal to access a new building that they propose at 7,800 square feet, and they meet all of the site development standards. The architectural design will match the current building.
The original building stays?
Yes, this is an addition. Yeah, they're just growing.
Is this jobs or is this a convenience store? Just asking.
No, this would be administrative office support associated with her wholesale fuel distribution business. And I believe she represented 35 new positions that would be associated with this business.
It's not convenient. If you got the right card, you can go out there and buy fuel. Her primary job is not on-site fuel, it's off-site. You look around a lot of construction sites, you'll see a real shape of fuel.
And she wholesale fuel contracting.
A great fuel business.
Largest one on business.
Pardon me?
What's that state? Largest one on business?
Top 10 from Dallas Business Journal.
Top 10.
Yeah, all of Dallas Fort Worth.
That's amazing.
So this is going just to the south of her business. So, all right, any questions on that? Number 9 is a site plan for 900 Marlene Drive for Flavio Ronzani. Ron Parco.
He would propose proposed to expand his facility to the south by a little under 2,000 square feet. Match the existing architectural design. There'll be a masonry screening wall that will be constructed there on the south end. We had put up this picture purposely. They too have grown and are very successful. All the stuff that you see here would be stored in that new warehouse area that would be created.
I know they stay just under 6,000 square foot.
Coincidentally, how did that happen?
Yeah.
That's a neat story there, you know, they started out on, a house, a little house. That's a big business. Questions on that? Item number 10 is 1416 SUP for a place of worship on Crest Haven. Renewal of SUP.
Nothing has really changed with this. They've had some different leadership that have come into the church. The reason why it's coming before you is it was under a one-year period of time. It's before you for a 6-month renewal period because they technically didn't have their first worship until August. So there's really not been a full year to look at how it fits into the neighborhood. So this 6 months would provide that period of time to evaluate how they're operating within the neighborhood. You've got minutes that from P&Z that indicate there were several business owners that attended the meeting that live in, that have businesses on either side that were very favorable towards him.
Now, there's very specific guidelines to what their maximum occupancy is, how to their parking, and if you've driven by there, you know there's a house that fronts the street. That was a garage in the back. They went in and built a church without any authorization. And so we worked with them probably for 2-3 years to get them to the point where they were somewhat in compliance by all of that. It's been a long, long trek. But I don't know if they're recommending a 6-month SUP to this. This is just to make sure that they're going to operate. They can have larger functions a few times a year. They got to come to us if the staff level gets the permit to do that. But, it's very, very small.
Because when reading through that, that's one of the things I was picking up on. It says you can have 6 in a 12-month period, but we're only giving them a 6-month option here. Is there any kind of conflict there? That was one of the stipulations.
I did not catch that.
Well, I think we can kind of look at it as a rolling 12 months.
Yeah.
If they do good,
Somewhat vertical.
I don't have a problem.
It's kind of one.
Administering that, it's already y'all are okay with it.
I went by the facility a couple days ago, and it's just, there's trailers and wood and everything, and somewhat of a parking lot place. It doesn't look like it's being used for the purposes.
Well, and that's where you need to feel free to question this now, because that's been some of the ongoing issues down there. It has just been a huge challenge. We've worked with them. We've been back trying to work with them, but they cannot have outdoor storage. They can't operate a business. The house is for pastoral residents. We don't put in a check how many people are there. It's for the pastor's family. And then the building in the back is for the church, for the worship.
So to support Councilman Thompson's question here, we go in there and they are operating a construction business out of that facility. How we will deal with that?
We'll revoke this to them.
Okay.
And this is very different than dealing with the First Methodist Church or First Baptist Church. It takes a pretty strong hand to deal with this particular group. When it's sensitive to them, but sometimes that they can't run a business, they can't store stuff. But we're fine. We strongly recommend that you do the 6 months rather than we'll just evaluate. I think there's a new pastor.
Probably would not hurt though, as the council reiterate that during this time, if there is evidence that you're running a business out of here, that it would be our recommendation, or if it's part of the SUP that your COE would revoke. Just make sure they understand that they can't do it.
We would appreciate anything we can do in that regard. And, yeah, if one of the members needs a place to park a trailer for the night, I mean, we're going to be free with that. But if it's, just like we would anywhere else, if they're operating business, so feel free to ask whatever questions. Believe me, they have been pretty old. So, okay, and item number 11 would be the public hearing that we will hold on the transition.
No, we have received written comments and we'll be working on reviewing those. And so we may have some changes to the final draft that we sent you. We were hoping to bring that to you December 9th. It will depend on how quickly we can review the comments that we've received from citizens by email. And I'm not sure if they'll be here speaking tonight or not, but it's someone that has always had an interest in this. And so he is giving us his feedback on it. We'll try to incorporate all those comments. We agree with it.
Pro or con? Pro or con?
Oh, I don't necessarily know it's pro or con. I think it is simply someone that has expertise in the area, and they're trying to be sure that we have covered all of our bases. And some they fall in the category of falling under new regulations versus that the item is compliant unless we change it. But if there were to be a change, new standards apply. So some of it may depend on interpretation. But some of it clearly may be things that we need to add to the plan. So that's what we're going through the review process now. And as we review them, if there are things that are certainly non-compliant, we either need to fix them or we need to add them to our plan.
This will, perpetuity, I guess, be a work in progress. Identify problems and put them on long-term plan. Not intended to be something that's just a one-time. Okay, well, we're very late from dinner, and so if we could let the council get their dinner and come back in, we will. Oh, I'm sorry, item number 12, yeah, the appointment to the third boards, and those are the people that the taxing entities have appointed. There's no change.
No, there's no change. There is one. Well, it would be extended to your terms. So it's
Okay, so we'll get our dinner, and when we come back, we'll let Mr. Olson lead us for a while.
Yeah.